this presenter is Brother Stephen Casey, a Christian brother from the North American province. And Steve spends part of his time in Peru and part of his time in America and in the United States. And he's the director of immersion for the province. And over the last, I think it's probably 16 years, he's been bringing groups from the United States, from Canada, and even from other countries to Peru. And they're working with people who are living in very poor conditions in Peru. And he has brought students and teachers and parents of the school children to Peru very successfully over the 16 years. And in that time, they have, I think, over 1,500 people have visited Peru on these immersion experiences. And they've been building houses for the poor, some of the poor people in terrible conditions in Peru. And even when COVID-19 struck and you couldn't actually bring people to Peru, Steve was very creative and he still managed to have the immersion happen via Zooms, and schools could join the immersion via a Zoom program that he designed. And even I see recently, he's bringing a group of teachers to Peru in a program called Pilgrims in Peru. So Steve, we're very much looking forward to hearing your experience of advocacy, how it's a pillar of your work as a Christian brother in North America and in Peru. So over to you, Steve.
Hey, thank you very much, Kevin. Thank you very much to Winifred and John for your wonderful presentations and the gifts of your congregations and the great needed justice needed for women and children around the world. It's very easy to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening when you take a look at the list of participants and all around the world that we gather in this moment today on our Edmund Rice Enrichment Zoom 2022. I'd like to say greetings from a sunny and beautiful autumn day here in Lima. My name is Stephen Casey. I am a Christian brother. I live mainly in Peru, but also in Brownsville, Texas each year, and work in our province immersion program, which is part of our Office of Educational Services in New Rochelle, New York. It's an absolute pleasure to share words with you on today's theme of advocacy being the pillar of a congregation's mission. I am very proud of our work that our Christian brothers do in Geneva, Switzerland, and the United Nations, every day giving voice to those who live on the margins of society. But also, I am very proud of every Christian brother's school and mission that creates advocates for our future. The mission of Edmund Rice across the globe is education in whatever form that takes, to raise up minds to bring about a more just world. Proud that the Christian brothers are standing at the highest level of advocacy, which is the United Nations, to bring about change. And that is awesome, because it is there that power exists to bring a more just humanity to the masses of people that live in extreme poverty in our world. I must say, as someone that lives in a developing country, that the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are creating a more just society, are bringing about a better environment for all, are allowing cultures to thrive, and are making our developing nations' economies stronger so all of creation can live in a more harmonious world. So thank you, and thank you to all religious congregations that heed this call. Our schools and our missions also do an incredible job in the creation of advocacy, because it is here that young minds meet the truth of how people really live in our world. Today, I want to speak of our North American Province Immersion Program that plays an important role in elevating young people's minds to the reality of the poor. Today, we have two immersion programs in our province, one in Lima, Peru, and the other in Brownsville, Texas. Yes, you can say that charity plays an important part in our immersion programs, but I must say that charity is what opens doors for our students to walk with their brothers and sisters in extreme poverty in Lima, Peru, and also walk with their migrant brothers and sisters at our southern border in Brownsville, Texas. In Lima, Peru, we average 18 to 20 immersion groups each year. For the past 2 years, we have had virtual as well as student groups present from the United States, Canada, Ireland, Australia, Argentina, and Uruguay. Virtual groups, they have a 3-day immersion where we go live into the classrooms of students across the Edmund Rice Network for 30 to 40 minutes each day to learn about life of the poor in the hills of Canto Grande and Jicamaca in Lima, Peru. A family in need is usually chosen by a group of religious sisters that live on site and know the needs of the people. And then we begin the process of building a home. We get the family to speak about their struggles in survival. And we have a group of teenage Peruvians that help us build the homes and also speak to our schools about what life is like for them living in these shanty towns of Lima. For groups that are present with us on immersion, the construction of a home for a family takes 3 days and allows our students during that time to enter the lives of families and learn what life is like to live without running water, to not have enough money to provide food for their family each day, learning about the poor healthcare systems available to the people, and seeing the impact that poor schools have on the children they encounter, all while building their home. Charity, in this case, brings about an education to young people to be the voice and to allow the advocate in them to go home to their developed countries and not just raise awareness about their brothers and sisters that live in such harsh conditions in Peru, but even more important, to become advocates for the poor that live on their own doorsteps at home. Now to Texas. In Brownsville, Texas, our immersion program brings our students from across the United States and Canada to the reality that is our southern border in the United States and immigration. Our students each day meet migrants that have been on a long journey to find a better life from their home country's struggles with war and poverty. Firsthand, our students meet families that have crossed the southern border seeking asylum or refugee status in the United States, and some then on to Canada. Our students learn the truth about who these people are and why they have to pick up their lives and move on to another country. Not everyone in the world wants to be an American, as people in the United States may sometimes believe. People don't just pick up and leave home and family behind because they want to, but because they have to, because of the great dangers to them if they stay behind. As Americans from the US, our own ancestors came to our shores mostly from Europe by the millions and millions during the 19th and 20th centuries. But today, the vast majority of Europeans live in developed countries. And for the most part, the people have their own human needs met right where they live, and thus no need to migrate anywhere. What it is also important to put out there is that there are nations today in Europe and around the world where new flare-ups continue, and our brothers and sisters from areas like Syria, Haiti, and today the Ukraine need safe passage to escape the ravages of war and poverty. In this immersion program in Brownsville, Texas, we teach our students about the facts of the US border, the who and why people migrate, and the US policy on immigration. But most importantly, we teach our students that as followers of Jesus in Edmond, we need to start a new conversation about our borders and immigration. We must tear down walls, build bridges, and teach our students that every 4 or 8 years, changing policy at the border, according to the political powers in charge, is not in the best interest of anyone. It is our hope that our students bring home the love of the migrant and a voice to start a larger conversation about how, as a country, the US can meet the needs of those who are forced to flee because of poverty, war, and natural disasters, as so many of our own ancestors did in the past. We hope to create a space for a continued dialogue to bring about a more human and just immigration system built on compassion and love for our brothers and sisters most in need. These young students will one day vote, and hopefully for people who can work across party lines to help solve our present day immigration policy. In the year 2020, about 660 million people lived in extreme poverty in the world. That is people living on less than $2 American a day. That number has grown substantially, with some numbers saying as high as 850 million to 1 billion people due to the COVID-19 pandemic over the last few years. The world's poor need more advocates to speak on local, city, state, province, and national levels to confront the iniquity for those that live on the margins of society. I hope in our small part of the world of immersion in Peru and in the United States, young students from our Edmund Rice schools around the world are inspired by our programs to become witnesses of their faith and humanity, to not only love their neighbor, but to create a better, more just world that all can live as brothers and sisters to each other. We all know that all is possible through the love of God. Last week, we had a group here in Lima from Brother Rice in Chicago. On their flight home from Peru, the students had a conversation with their school moderator, Mr. Michael Dolan. Michael wanted me to know that the conversation with his students was that they told him that their week in Lima on immersion meant so much more to them than their time in Cusco, and they would do it all over again. That is why I continue working in immersions, because young people today want to leave their comfort zones, to learn about and help change the lives of the poor. Advocates are created, and each child in our schools is being taught first to be loving and giving, then more importantly, be the voice of change by advocating on behalf of those who have no voice. My prayer for our students from Brother Rice Chicago is to go out to all the ends of Chicago and help bring change to the lives of the poor in your city by changing the aspects that make them poor. Just want to say in ending, thanks to my provincial leadership team for their support always, my fellow Christian brothers in the province, the Office of Educational Services, and to my brothers in Lima and Brownsville for your support always making immersions possible for so many young people across this whole Edmund Rice network. Live Jesus in our hearts, everyone, forever.
Unmute yourself, Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve, for your presentation. And I think one point you brought out very clearly there was that bringing people on immersion to Peru and so on, it doesn't stop there. They can learn things there, the kind of experiences there that they can apply when they come back home. So it doesn't mean it stops when they leave Peru. It continues when they return to Chicago or to wherever they're based. I'm going to invite our three presenters, give them a very short opportunity to say a final word, having heard the other presentations, having listened to people in the breakout rooms. So I'll begin with Sister Winifred. So Winifred, over to you just for a final word.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I think I was calling you John earlier on.
That's okay.
I was going with the first name. I think this has been a tremendous session and hugely enriching. And in my small group I mentioned, and it's worth mentioning it here, that the more we as faith-based people can move together, we're all doing the same work. We might be looking at it with a different angle, whether we're in direct service or whether we are doing advocacy at the highest levels. We need each other, and we need our various congregations, our various charisms, and the very persons that have all come together here tonight. We are a huge force for change in the world. And thank you very much for inviting me. You are just marvelous. ERI. So, and you lead the way for many of us. And I'll finish with this. I know I say to Kevin Cawley, look, you know, he's big into the ecology. And when he's going there, I say, you're doing the work, Kevin. you know, because I can be then free to do something else that needs to be done. I'd be going with my gender lens. So to everybody, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Winifred. And John McGeady, over to you for a final word.
I suppose just first of all to say that I found both Winifred and Stephen's input fantastic this evening, and really, really worthwhile, and also the conversation in the group as well. I suppose for me, and it's something that it's taken me a long while to kind of get a grip on this, but to work strategically, a bit like what Winifred has mentioned, you know, to identify, well, who can we work with and who can we network with and how can we use our resources together, but also to kind of identify what can I do already, identify what do I need to learn in order to do the next step, and sort of figure out a way of doing that, but to do it in a focused, planned way, I think is the thing that really I would just leave the group with. Yeah. So again, thanks very much to ERI.
Okay, thank you very much, John. And Steve, a final word from yourself.
Sure, no, thank you to John and Winifred, who said it so very well. The interconnectedness of how we work, not only in our congregation, but across congregations, and the invitation. Winifred, you said it there. We are all doing different things, but we're all working on the same path, you know, to be able to make a change in the world in which we live. So for each of us, you know, to be able to bring that love, my love of the Peruvian people, the meeting of the migrant at the border, but everyone does that, no matter where they are at, fighting, you know, for those who live at the margins each and every day. So thank you for the opportunity to be able to share that with all of you.
Thank you, Steve. So thank you to all three of our presenters, and thank you too to all our participants.